It was midnight, and Sharon was exhausted. She'd left the motel in Scarborough at 6 a.m. the previous morning and had been on the road ever since. She never stayed until checkout at any of the motels she patroned. It was too dangerous. She had to keep moving, or he would certainly find her, and in short order, too. It had been this way for 7 months now. Drive all day, sleep for a few hours at a cheap motel or campground, change identities, change vehicles, repeat. Never stay still. Everything was in constant flux for Sharon these days. The only thing that had any degree of comfort and sameness was her wardrobe case. There she kept her collection of wigs. She kept some clothes too, but never for very long. She burned them in campfires about once a week and bought new ones at thrift stores in the random towns she'd passed through. But her wigs she never burned. They were very versatile. It was a horrible situation to be on the run, but if there was even a small silver lining, it was that she got to switch appearances and identities often. She would have even affectionately referred to it as playing dress-up if she could tell anyone about it. Maybe she would have been an actress in a different life. She got to be Emily, the long-haired brunette, last week. Emily was traveling to visit her mother, if anyone ever asked. The week before, she was Vanessa, the curly-haired blonde who had come to visit the local antique museum. The week before that, she was rebellious Jessica, who wore short, choppy black hair and had a nose ring. And so on, every week, since the incident. She hadn't yet decided who she wanted to be this week, but she didn't have the energy to focus on that right now. She was driving in the pitch dark on a small country road. The only thing she could see were the white road lines in front of her and the dark silhouette of the forest trees passing through her line of sight. She was fighting to stay awake and to keep her vehicle on the road. Then she came to a sign on the right side of the road that read, "Welcome to Fox Hollow. We recycle." After miles of nothing but darkness and trees, Sharon was relieved to have found a town, and she even saw a small white light up ahead in the distance. As she got closer to it, it became evident that the light was actually coming from a lone roadside diner. The diner had a shoddy white paint job which was illuminated on each side by large fluorescent white flood lamps. The diner was only slightly bigger than an average-sized house, but it didn't feel homey or inviting. Instead, it had the same sterile and impersonal vibe of an old warehouse. On top of that, it looked a bit run down and had only a cheap plastic banner for a sign that read, "Uncle Slappo's Diner and Ice Cream Parlor," with a picture of a circus clown next to it that Sharon thought looked way too happy. The diner didn't look open and felt like a seedy place, but Sharon had to at least try to see if she could stop there for a while. There were no other buildings or lights in sight, and she couldn't go on any further. If nothing else, she could just try to park in the parking lot and sleep for a while. But to her surprise, the door was unlocked. When she walked in, she was amazed how much nicer the inside of the building was than the outside. Everything there was immaculately clean, and the lights were so bright that the entire diner almost had a ghostly quality about it. The floor had white and pastel pink, yellow, and purple checkerboard tiles, which matched the countertops, tables, and booths. It felt like a place she would have loved as a child. But now the lights burned her tired eyes. She looked around and saw no one. But she noticed a large red neon sign on the wall in the shape of a hand with the words, "Psychic Readings," emblazoned upon it. Underneath it was a white piece of paper with a hand-drawn arrow pointing downward. She went over to see what the arrow was pointing toward and found a small trapdoor-style hatch below it. After a moment of hesitation, she pulled the handle and opened the hatch to find a small spiral stairway leading downward. The shaky metal stairs creaked as she descended. It led to a small, cozy room that looked halfway like a family living room, with many photos and home accents scattered about. It was a bit cluttered for Sharon's liking, but it had a homey vibe that comforted her and made her feel more at ease. The room was dimly lit by a small tungsten lamp sitting upon a wooden desk and had a burgundy-colored shag carpet on the floor that nearly matched the color of the wood paneling on the walls. There in the middle of the room were two upholstered chairs which were facing each other. The setup reminded Sharon of her old therapist's office. She sat in one of the chairs and reclined herself. If she were caught, she could just tell them that she came in to see the psychic and fell asleep. Sleep came quickly, and it gave way to a pleasant dream. She was on the beach with her husband, Tim. It was their favorite place to go. He held her close and kissed her and told her how much he loved her. But suddenly, the memories of real life invaded the pleasant dream, and she woke up with an anxious gasp, briefly forgetting where she was. Sharon missed her husband dearly, the way he used to be. They'd been married for 10 years, and for the first 8 years of their marriage, he was truly the most wonderful man on earth. He was very kind-hearted and supportive. Bertie Timms, an old woman at their church, even said, "If Tim doesn't get into heaven, nobody's getting in." He was also a very intelligent man and a hard worker. He was a military intelligence officer and was truly an expert in his field. But after 8 years, something changed in him. He began to get irritated very easily. He would snap at people for no reason. This was how it started out, but it got much worse and eventually escalated into murderously violent urges. In a CT scan, it was found that Tim had an inoperable non-cancerous tumor growing in the prefrontal cortex of his brain. This is the area of the brain that deals with the identity, as well as complex emotional responses, and it gives us a filter for our basic urges that come from our more animalistic nature. Tim's case wasn't the first time this type of thing had happened. About 2 decades prior to Tim's diagnosis, a male school teacher in his 40s developed the same issue. He started out as a normal, functioning member of society and quickly devolved into a monster and a shell of a man. He eventually got so bad that he ended up raping and murdering his landlady after reportedly fighting back strong sexual and violent urges for several weeks. At that point, he'd already lost his job for saying inappropriate things to his students, and he didn't even know who he was half the time. This was just like Tim's. He just couldn't control himself anymore. He killed the family dog with a kitchen knife and tried to kill Sharon too. He would have succeeded, but she managed to wrestle the knife from his hand, slicing off the ring finger and pinky of his left hand. This moment still plays back in Sharon's mind as an intrusive thought. She remembered hearing the clang of his wedding ring on the floor as his fingers hit the ground, and he writhed in pain, feverishly trying to stop the bleeding with his other hand. Sharon left quickly as he continued to scream in agony, and she'd been running ever since. She knew that he'd be coming for her. He wanted her dead. And with his background in military intelligence, he had the skills to track someone down with high levels of efficiency. So, Sharon could never stay still. Deep down, she knew it was only a matter of time before he found her and killed her. "Hey!" A stern male voice interjected from behind her. Sharon jumped and screamed loudly. "I'm sorry to startle you," said the man. Sharon breathed a sigh of relief that she'd never met this man before. He was an older man in his 60s with olive-toned skin and long, dark gray hair. "I just wanted to know what you're doing in here," the man continued. "The door was open," Sharon explained. "I stopped in to rest, but I saw a sign for psychic readings. I wanted to get one done." "Well, we're technically closed," said the man with an exasperated sigh, taking off his glasses and rubbing his small dark eyes with one hand. "I must have forgotten to lock up before I went to sleep. This room is both my office and my bedroom." It was clear that the man was frustrated. "Oh, okay," Sharon said. "I'm sorry. I'll go then if you—" No. The man quickly interrupted. "I just so happen to really need the money, so I will humor you and do your reading." He sat down in the chair opposite to Sharon. "My name is Dr. Karkashvili. What's your name?" "Julie," Sharon lied without hesitation. She had become quite skilled at making things up on the fly, if the situation called for it. "Well, nice to meet you, Julie. Is there any particular aspect of life you would like me to focus on? Romance, money, life path potentials?" Dr. Karkashvili inquired. "Well," Sharon paused and tried to find the right words. "I suppose my main question would be, which direction should I go in to find a better life?" "Sure," said Dr. Karkashvili, as he yawned and rubbed his eyes once more.
I'll start off by reading your palm, then we'll follow up with a tarot reading.
He grabbed a small black leather pouch and opened it up. He took out a deck of cards and put it on the small table nearby.
Please give me your left hand,
he said as he presented his hand to receive hers. She hesitantly handed him her left hand.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
The doctor faltered and turned a little red. It was clear that he was embarrassed, but he tried to play it off.
I need to see your lines on your left ring finger to answer your question properly. I didn't realize that you had any missing fingers. We'll just have to skip the palm reading and go straight to the tarot. Is that all right, Julie?
Sure, that's no problem, Julie agreed. Julie wasn't upset. Julie had always been flexible like that, at least for as long as she could remember.